Stick around with me and we'll take a look at a new Squier Affinity in 2021 and what the buying experience is like during a pandemic. What's up, everybody? I'm John. Thank you for joining me here at Overdrive Guitar Channel. Today we're going to be looking at one of the best-selling guitars in the world, the Squier Affinity Telecaster. This one happens to be butterscotch maple neck, and we'll talk more about that choice, or maybe lack of choice, a little later on in this video, as it will kind of be about the buying experience during a pandemic also. So anybody who follows the channel at all will know that through this hard year I've been relegated to one guitar, which has become kind of a Frankenstrat of sorts, kind of unofficially dubbed the Unsuper Strat. Kind of got this project guitar going, but it's kind of confusing when I'm doing reviews and demos and stuff for people to see this, right? An Ibanez kind of shredder looking guitar, but I have it set up to sound very, very Fendery because that's my wheelhouse. So for a few reasons, first of all, I needed an upgrade. That's not a great guitar. Second of all, I have most of the parts in for the project. If you're not following the project, check out the project. I'm taking suggestions still, but I got some parts in. We're ready to get going, but I didn't have another guitar while that guitar is being worked on, right? So there's another reason I needed this bad boy. Also, I just wanted to be relatable, like I said, right? To people during the demos, I want to have something that they can relate to, that they have, so that they get an idea of exactly what sound they might get with the same kind of gear, the same kind of setup, you know, within reason. So being that I was relegated to that one not so great guitar, also my inspiration was kind of lacking, and I kind of knew that having a classic Fender style guitar back in my stable would definitely bring back at least some of my inspiration. It was time to look for a guitar. And that's where things started to go a little wrong. Now, at first, I really, of course, wanted to go and pick up the guitar in person. When it comes to guitars, especially the cheap ones, always try them, if at all possible, before buying them. That being said, I felt pretty comfortable buying a Fender product through the mail without trying it first, and when I shopped for what was in stock near me, I didn't have any choice because there was nothing in stock near me under $700, which was out of my budget. And even over that budget, there really was almost nothing at any music store within 100 miles of me. So online order it was. So Sweetwater is my first choice. That's where I went. I've always had great luck with them. Never had a single complaint. I ordered this guitar. I received it pretty quickly. I took it out of the box. Initial kind of thoughts. First of all, let me say, I've had a couple of Affinity guitars go through my hands years ago, right, when Affinity first started. And the first thing I'll say is this is miles better than that. But stay tuned because this isn't a happy video totally. So taking it out of the box, the first thing I noticed, honestly, is the finish. I'll just go through right now, actually. A few things have been updated, or they say upgraded, I would say updated, right, in the past couple of years with the Affinities. One of them is these bodies are actually older now, which is a great bonus. Yes, tone wood is a thing. It matters what kind of wood your guitar is made out of. So that change happened, I believe, around 2018 or so. For this year, I know they've changed the color, and I think a couple other small tweaks, but all of them basically were cosmetic. And one more thing, kind of word of caution-ish, if you're looking for a string through, it's kind of luck of the draw with Affinities, whether you're going to get a string through or a top loader. This one happened to be a top loader. I was hoping for a string through, but I was actually already aware of the fact that it's kind of luck of the draw. When it comes to these particular guitars, it's kind of, you know, what parts they have laying around. This particular one is a top loader. Not the biggest deal. I would have rather had a string through though. So as I started to shop online, I quickly started to realize that if I wanted a guitar in any timely manner, my choices were greatly, greatly narrowed. And once I kind of narrowed it down with kind of my budget, how long I wanted to wait, it was kind of between this and a couple other kind of goofy guitars. It was sort of this guitar by default. Now, in the past couple of years, I've become a Telecaster fan. I was always a Fender fan. I was always a Strat guy before. I never really liked the immediacy of a Tele. As I grow into my playing, immediacy is something I've come to love, not only in my guitars, also in my amplifiers. I didn't like Marshalls at first either, but once I got along in my journey, of course, I love them now. So I was going to make that video as soon as I took this thing out of the box last night, but I figured maybe I should wait to make sure this isn't kind of like that honeymoon thing. Maybe play it for, put some hours of playing through it, right? Put it through its paces before I do a video, make any kind of recommendation or review. It wouldn't be fair to do it without really putting it through its paces. And I'm glad I decided to do that because there are a couple of issues that I feel I should probably show you guys so that you guys know maybe what to be aware of if you're in the market for a guitar like this. Show you guys why you should probably try one in the store if you can. And if you can, be patient until they're back in stock so that you can try one in the store. So we're going to do a kind of head-to-toe review of this guitar. But right before we jump into that, real quick, little pause for the cause. Guitar, teaching guitar, reviewing gear is my passion. Please, please, if you could give me a like, a thumbs up, leave me a comment what you'd like to see. Any kind of support like that is the best kind of support you can give me. Doesn't cost a thing. Thank you guys. So let's get into the review, and I'll intersperse some sound samples in between, but it's not going to be so much about the sound of this guitar, this review, because spoiler alert, the pickups are absolutely horrible. They are the absolute weakest point of this guitar, and I'm not really sure what to make of this, but I actually had a bullet Tele go through my hands earlier this year, and I didn't think the pickups were horrible, but somehow this one, they just are terrible. More on that as we work our way down the guitar. Alright, so let's take our head to toe look at this guitar, and I'll probably be slipping some B-roll in here so that you guys can get kind of a closer look. So like I said before, the first thing I noticed when I took this thing out of the box was the fit and finish. You'll notice, first of all, a lot of people will be happy that we have our gold and black logo. Now, I did see one other place had Teles exactly like this in stock, but the logo was all black even though it was an Affinity, so maybe be careful if you have your eye on this gold logo. I bought this guitar with the fact in mind that I'm probably going to be putting a neck I already have on it, but more on that later. So the first thing I noticed was that logo, so it looks great, right? The next thing I noticed was the tuners. Exactly what you'd kind of expect to see, right? Our sealed die-cast tuners. They're 14:1 ratio, exactly what you'd expect to see. Kind of budget tuners. I'll tell you, they're perfectly smooth. These don't have any problems that you run into sometimes where you'll find maybe one is really tough compared to the other, or there's no play in them, nothing like that. They feel great. No reason, in my opinion, to change them. The next thing we'll come to is the nut. Now, they list this as synthetic bone. I don't know who they're kidding. It's also black. No bones about it. This thing's plastic, right? It's plastic. But I will say it is absolutely cut and shaped impeccably. It's one of the biggest surprises of this guitar. The nut slots and the shaping, the shoulders of it, where kind of the sides of the neck go across the neck slot, how it matches up. It's absolutely perfect. It's like a luthier spent time on it, which I'm sure is not what happened here. So I got to commend them on that. My guess is they have some kind of prefab system going that's really working for them. However they're doing it, it's working. So the next thing, and another one of the very first things I noticed, the neck carve. They absolutely nailed the neck carve. I would say 100% they were copying the current American Professional line, because this shape is exactly reminiscent of it. It starts with kind of a full C up by the nut and comes to kind of a wide, almost D, that's almost like their flat oval shape up near the 12th fret, and it's kind of the perfect kind of substantial amount of neck in your hand. You get great leverage on your bends, nice and full in your hands for chording. It really is the neck shape that you look for in a Fender. So the next thing I'll talk about is the fretwork, and this one's kind of a two-sided one. The first thing I'll say is, with the big deal that's been made lately about fret sprout on the internet, right? The biggest marketing tool right now is actually videos like these, and one of the things that people love to pick on for some reason is fret sprout, right? Now, fret sprout, if you don't know, is when the frets stick out of the sides of the neck. Basically, it's caused by the wood shrinking, right? And the frets staying the same size, they start to stick out. Now, this is kind of one of the things that separates cheap guitars from expensive ones, right? How long they're able to keep the wood around to age it so that it doesn't change once you get it. That's exactly what happens, right? So with these cheaper guitars, specifically ones with rosewood or rosewood substitute necks, you get fret sprout a lot. So what they've done, it looks to me like, is come up with a new system of fretting where they cut their tangs a little short, cut their frets a little shorter, and there's no chance that they have to worry about fret sprout. It's great fretwork. It is way better than I expected to see on an Affinity, and it is miles ahead of what Affinities used to be. This is another good job right here by Squier. Now, like I said, the fretwork is a double-edged sword, or kind of two-sided. The reason I said that, the 15th fret was not seated properly and would not seat properly without a lot of help. There was a little bit of a dead spot, kind of only on bending. So what I'd say about that is, if you're a beginner or even early intermediate, you probably wouldn't even run into a problem with that. Me being anal, I was checking every single note on every single bend on the guitar, and that is a note I commonly use. I was fretting out when I bent on my high E string at the 15th or 14th fret, excuse me, because the 15th fret was sticking out too much. So now I had a decision, right? We'll save the talk about that till after I review the rest of the guitar. So as we come down, like I said, I'll put in some B-roll probably, but as you take a look at the body, and this is alder, the finish is great. They did change the butterscotch color a little bit on Squiers for 2020. Whether it's closer or not, I'm not sure, but I will say it looks great. You can see the grain of the wood right through it, and it actually looks pretty good, the grain of this wood. You can't see any obvious separation of the different pieces. It's kind of streaky wood, but it's uniformly streaky, so in my opinion it looks really good. It's really great looking, especially for a guitar at this price point. Fit and finish is another good job by Squier. So that pretty much covers everything I have to say about the guitar. Other than all the things I mentioned, it's basically what you'd expect from a Squier Tele, right? It's that kind of old reliable. So now let's talk about the problem with kind of the high fret. So it took a lot of work to get this fret seated, which I suspect is why it was popped out. And also once I got it seated, it still needed to be taken down a little bit. So this kind of brought on a dilemma, right? First of all, it's a cheap guitar. Second of all, it's brand new. Do I want to have to work on, first of all, this cheap guitar? Second of all, this guitar that's brand new that I shouldn't have to put up with anything being defective, really. But now comes kind of the COVID situation, right? And because I know how things are right now, I knew I could fix that fret in worst case scenario a couple of hours, right? Or I could send it back, go through the hassle of waiting at the post office during these times, waiting for the guitar to be shipped back, waiting for a decision, waiting for a replacement. I'm sure Sweetwater would have been great about it. They always have been. but it's not a hassle I like to go through. And being the times being what they are, and knowing I could fix it in a couple hours, I decided to just bite the bullet, do the fretwork myself. And I went ahead and leveled all the frets. I pretty much did a fret job. That's why I'm not going to put a close-up of the fretwork probably in this, because although it was pretty much immaculate from the factory, it was one of the big surprises of this guitar. I have done a little bit of work to this, so it wouldn't be fair to give Squier the credit, really, even though they did a great job. And like I mentioned before, I bought this guitar with the fact in mind that I have two necks that will fit on this guitar, one of them being a really good one and one of them being an okay one. So I figured also, with cheap guitars, what's the weak point? Usually the neck. So I kind of figured I was going to be changing this neck, but it's still not something that you should come to expect or put up with, really. In my opinion, it's kind of a bunch of crap, and they're kind of getting away with one because of the COVID situation. That being said, they're not the ones keeping me from doing this. I could send it back. It was my decision, so I'm going to live with it, and overall, I'm pretty happy. So now the burning question is, would I recommend this as a purchase to somebody? And I'm going to split this into two kind of camps. The first one being somebody who's experienced on guitar, who is looking for a project, who knows how to work on guitars, like fretwork, setups, all the stuff that gets a guitar playing right, cutting a nut, things like that. If you don't have those skills in your arsenal, if you are who this guitar is truly supposed to be aimed at, right, the beginner, the problems that I mentioned probably wouldn't show their face, because you're not going to be playing the kind of intricate parts that would cause you to find kind of that bad spot that I found. That being said, it doesn't make it right, in my opinion. If you're selling a guitar, any kind of musical instrument that's tagged or classified as such a musical instrument, it should function as one, right? I'm sure they would have made it right. I'm sure they would have done right by me if I didn't decide to fix it myself. But to me, that's not really the point. I shouldn't have to make that decision. I shouldn't have to go through that. So for an intermediate player who doesn't have skills of working on a guitar, like fretwork, things like that, I can't recommend this guitar. For a beginner who's just starting out, this thing will take you for miles. You can get Tele-ish sounds, although the pickups to me are terrible. You got to remember, I'm an experienced player who's developed a taste. You got to keep things like that in mind. But you can get Telecaster-ish sounds. The pickups are the weak point. In the future, when you see this guitar, it will have a different set of pickups. They're actually right there. I wasn't going to do this video today, but as soon as I get it done, those pickups can go in, and I can't wait. Because other than that, at this point, this is a great guitar. Keeping in mind, I had to do some fret work, some setup work. After that, it was a great guitar. So if you don't have those skills and you're after a great guitar, maybe save a little money, go for like a classic vibe. They are usually impeccable. Now, if you can put up with a couple little defects or things that you might have to put some love into, like maybe use a fret file a little or some setup work, then you can go with this pretty safely, I think. And in future times, of course, we'll have instruments back in stock and we'll be able to go and try them. So this has just been a little glimpse into what you get when you buy a Squier Affinity Telecaster in January of 2021 during this godforsaken pestilence. Thanks, guys. Keep on rocking.